This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 70 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jo Watson, and we'll be talking all about how to write authentic sales copy. But first, to last week's question, which was, what series would you gift to somebody else? Lots of comments this week. I'm not sure I will read all of them, but thank you to everybody who commented. So thank you to Carey, Amy, Ian, Victoria, Edwin, Stacey, Jasmine, Scott and Bernard. A couple of the ones that were included, Harry Potter was mentioned a couple of times. I completely agree. I don't really like what J.K. Rowling is saying these days. Very, very transphobic, which I obviously really disagree with. But, you know, those books had a significant role and influence in my childhood, and I can't ever change that. So they do still have a place in my heart. Deborah Harkness, V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic. What else was mentioned? Alien, Kitty Cat, Lee Bardugo's Shadow and Bone trilogy, which I loved. I binge read that in Corfu, so they kind of remind me of Corfu. Do you ever get that, where you go away somewhere and you read like the whole series of something, and therefore it is always attached to that location? Another one, I read most of the True Blood series when I was on a 2-week holiday in Turkey. So that series always reminds me of Turkey for some random reason. I would just like to point out it is not set in Turkey. It is set in America. But anyway, it's these associations we make. What else? Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Cowell, and she is an award winner. I think it's like the Hugo or the Locus or you know what, Nebula as well, possibly. Anyway, one of those fantasy ones, and I think I've mentioned on here before that long term I'd love to win an award. I'd probably have to go trad for that, but yeah, so I am trying to read some fantasy specific award winners, but yeah. And then Scott's message definitely made me laugh. He mentions reading Locke Lamora, The Lies of Locke Lamora, sorry, and I think some other people in the Facebook group, the Rebel Authors Facebook group, have also mentioned The Lies of Locke Lamora. I do own the first book now, I would like to point out. I just haven't read it because, you know, girl has a few hundred books on her TBR. So thank you to everybody who commented. I always read them. I don't always have a chance to reply, but I do always read them. And yeah, so thank you very much. This week's question is, describe your author voice in 3 words. Now listen, I know we have a group of rebels, okay? But this is a strict 3 words, okay? You're not allowed to use 5 words or 2 words. You must use 3 words. So what is your author voice in 3 words? The book recommendation of the week this week is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Now, wow. When I was going to recommend this book, I was going to say that if you have a vagina, then you need to read this book, because it is the most wonderful, empowering, girl power, solidarity book that I have read in a really long time. But then the further I got into the book, the more Glennon also talks about the fact that it's not just women that are put in cages, but men are also put in cages. And so it's less about whether or not you have tits and a vagina, and more about whether or not, you know, you are a human. And I think anybody would find value from reading this book because it is so empowering. And she has this beautiful, you know, philosophical type prose. She reminds me very much of Liz Gilbert. And in fact, I did describe her as thus. So I said that Glennon is to women what Elizabeth Gilbert is to creatives. And then somebody told me that they're actually friends, which doesn't surprise me at all. And oh my God, I would definitely want to read a co-written book by them. What else can I say about this book? Yeah, basically, I should say thank you to Katie, Ali, and Meg, who all recommended this book to me. They were raving about it, and I was like, yeah. And, you know, eventually I got to it. And then literally, a couple of chapters in, I was like, oh my God, why didn't you make me read this sooner? And also to Sam, who recommended it more recently. So I love this book. I love this book as a girl, as a woman, as a creative. I love this book as just a human being. And I feel like do you ever read a book and then at the end of it, you just sigh? Like, I don't know. Anyway, go read the book. It's amazing. I will drop some affiliate links in the show notes. So in personal update news this week, it's been a weird old week. I was expecting to finish my first draft of Side Characters, and last Saturday I did one of these like all-day sprinty jobs and wrote my personal best, over 5,000 words in the day, which is like, I know that's nothing to some people, but to me it was a huge number of words. And then I haven't actually written since. I think that's for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because I've never written that many words before, and therefore I sort of burnt out a bit. And the second reason is that I have a process and I have not followed that process for this book. So my process, the 4 points with, and actually it's funny because I thought this was just for nonfiction. I actually think it's for any fiction, but my process is input, analyze, intellect, output. And I'm just going to talk about this because it's been a bit of a realization for me. So I've talked in my my first January one, which was about 2021. Whichever one. It was either the last one of 2020 or the first one of 2021. And I talked about the fact that I needed more input this year. But specifically, I think I spoke about visual input. And that's still true. And if you want more information on that, go back and listen to that episode. So I need to input, and for side characters, that typically means reading very intentionally. Reading for side characters for non-fiction books that I write. Sorry, it means picking fictional books and fictional TV shows and movies that intentionally with the specific purpose of watching or reading to analyze. So then, once I have inputted, I analyse by taking notes, by making notes in the margins. Yes, I know it's sacrilege. And what else do I do? Yeah, so I just, at the time, I will write notes and stuff. I remember going to watch the latest, the most recent Joker film twice. The first time I just watched it, and the second time I went and I just had a notepad, and people thought I was fucking bonkers in the cinema, writing 10 pages of notes in the dark. Anywho, that's what I did. And then I have to think about it. And this, thinking, I just percolate, reread the notes. And then part of that is outputting. Unless I do this output, I don't really consolidate the lesson. And that means I have to write up the lessons that I'm learning, which is a bitch because it takes a lot of time to do that. And, then once I've done it, I then have to convert it into, what's it called? A book, a non-fiction book. So, yeah, this process has been a realization for me that this is what I have to do. And whilst I've been doing the input and the analysis, I haven't been doing the intellecting, the thinking about it, and I haven't been doing the output. So I am forgetting a lot of stuff. And I definitely feel like in the last year, I have a void and a gap in learning. I feel a bit bereft of having learned anything. And it's not that I haven't learned anything. The problem is I haven't actually consolidated it and written it down. So that's definitely something that I need to do. Why am I telling you this? Well, this week, after I did that massive vomit in the sprint day, I realized I didn't have anything else to say. And it's not that it's not that the book was finished. It's that I'd drained myself and I hadn't thought about, I don't know, how am I going to explain this? I hadn't thought enough about, I guess, the output. I don't know. Basically, I've realized that bit was missing. And so I took 2 days out this week and I just read and I watched TV with a notebook and did analysis, which I'm sure you'll end up seeing in the book. And yeah, I intentionally took in and analysed, and this weekend, I suppose, or early next week, I will need to write all of that up. I may bypass the writing it up as a lesson and just do it straight into the book. But normally I would write it up. Anyway, that's probably enough of me waffling on about that. But that is like my biggest takeaway from this week. And the fact that because I took 2 days out, I'm now really fucking behind. But anyway, that's my problem to deal with. So what else? Yeah, I think that's it. I think that is literally like my biggest takeaway from this week. So moving on, the Rebel of the Week. The Rebel of the Week this week is Lauren Mullis, and I hope I've said your surname correctly. Okay, so Lauren says, while this isn't the most rebellious thing I've ever done, as someone who loves reading and writing, I thought you would get a kick out of it. I was in the 4th grade and I read obsessively, but had very little interest in making friends. I was an odd child and very solitary. I wouldn't say I was shy, I just liked books more than people. I completely understand that, and I'm sure many people listening will as well. And would sometimes come to school with 6 or 7 books in my backpack, besides what was required for class. This didn't concern me much, but did start to worry my teacher. One day at the start of lunch/free time, she took my books away and told me I needed to go socialise. I absolutely refused. I spent the rest of the recess time pacing the back of the gym, writing a story in my head and narrating it to myself aloud. I reasoned that she couldn't possibly take away a story in my head, so I still won the battle. Looking back though, I do laugh at how crazy it must have looked for a little girl to be walking back and forth whispering to herself while the normal kids were playing tag. I never stopped writing stories, and I'm working on a novel now, which is sort of a rebellion in itself. I fight against my self-doubt constantly, against the numbers that remind me how low the success rate is, against the worries that it won't be worth the time I put into writing books, against the people who lovingly imply that it's impractical and I could spend my time in better ways. But I always go back to that little girl who was so certain that her future, aka current me, would write fiction one day. I keep doing it for her, and because I refuse to let the doubts tell me what to do with my life. I love this story so much because it is just like Glennon, I suppose. It is super empowering, and I am sure, and I know that there are lots of people listening who will feel exactly what you're saying and will totally get it. I know I do. Like when I read it, I was like, that was me as well for a really long time. And I feel you. Keep going. Don't give up. And you will write full time. Fuck the stats. You know, there are lots and lots of indies making it full time. So don't let that dissuade you. No new patrons this week, but a huge thank you to all existing patrons. I love you guys. You guys help to support the show. You help to support me. And I massively appreciate it, especially at the moment. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes, as well as the bonus Poison and Prose sessions, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm going to play a word from the sponsor today, and which is Copywriting Life, and then we'll get on with the interview.
Hello, Rebels. We're from Copywriting Life, Kobo's free, fast, and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and we want to help you take control of your independent publishing business.
With this in mind, KWL created a way for you to publish an audiobook right in your account just as easily as you can publish an ebook. You can create a customizable table of content, set the price in 16 different currencies, and even set up a pre-order for your audiobook with no date limitations. We don't ask for exclusivity, and you'll always control your pricing.
Not only is it easy to publish your audiobook to Kobo's store, it also goes to Kobo's partners like Booktopia in Australia. On top of that, we have promo opportunities exclusive for authors that publish directly with KWL. If you'd like to learn more about publishing and promoting your audiobooks, email the team at writinglife@kobo.com.
If you want to learn more about Kobo Writing Life in general, check out our blog, podcast, and find us on social. You can create your free account today at kobo.com/writinglife. Now back to Sasha, and happy writing.
Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author podcast. I am super excited for today's episode because I got to see our guest speak, and let me tell you, they're fucking hilarious. Today, I am joined by Jo Watson. Jo is a freelance copywriter, editor, and trainer hired by people who want personality in their projects. People even hire her to speak at events, though usually just the once. Despite having fancy letters after her name as a chartered manager, she remains a lover of swearing, sarcasm, and puns. She's going to fit in well. She also makes lots of inappropriate jokes, which is one of the many reasons she left a stable career in teaching, her mother's words. Jo has an infant daughter, Lily, and is starting to feel the immense downside of raising a confident, independent female. I love that bio. That is literally my favourite bio ever.
Oh,
welcome.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Although I'm very upset at the intro you've just given, because when people say someone's funny, they usually go on to be like the blandest person ever. So I'm hugely worried about that you may have oversold me on this.
No, I saw you speak. You were absolutely hilarious. I was like proper cackling from my belly whilst I watched your session. So yeah, no, I am genuinely honoured to have you. Tell everyone a little bit about your journey and how you came to like where you are today.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll say the tacky and contrived thing that everyone says when they end up writing for a living, and that is to say, I've always loved writing. But it's true. I did always love writing, but not so much in the storytelling way that I'm involved in now. I just liked writing things to be technically accurate. I liked that idea of correcting people's work from a very early age, and structuring a well-worded letter. I think I was probably like 7 when I started writing them. I believe I wrote to my local MP about something. But yeah, I did always like the process of writing. And even when I was a teacher, as you mentioned, anything that came down to writing always came to me because it was just what I wanted to do. I always want to communicate things in the best way that I can and represent people on paper as best as I can. So I've always just got stuck in with any project that's involved with that. But the reason I took it upon myself to do this for a job and to just set up on my own is because I realized I was using words to get results. And that was mainly through letters of complaint and stuff like that. So the strongly worded letters became strongly worded emails, and they became strongly worded tweets over the years. And I was finding that I was getting really, really effective results from customer service when I'd previously been palmed off. So I thought, oh my God, I can actually put together a really, really good argument. So because I wasn't intelligent enough to go on and become a lawyer or something like that, I just thought, right, well, I'll write and I will use my powers for good and hopefully make some money out of it. And here I am now. And like you said, every now and then I might be able to make people laugh, and that's always nice.
Were you an English teacher out of curiosity, or?
I was a primary school teacher,
okay.
Which no one can ever believe. It was never my dream to do it. I have no idea how I ended up doing it. It was really hard. I've got so much respect for anyone in that career. If you just left to teach the kids, it's absolutely brilliant, but you're not. You are just bombarded by Ofsted and bureaucracy and God, I said that word wrong then. I'm not going to attempt it again. Bureaucracy, is that it? That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah. It was like my pet hate. I used to work in local government, and it was bureaucracy central, and you couldn't. I once remember having to fill out a 10-page questionnaire on because I wanted to survey, do a 5-question survey to some people in the office place. 5 questions on a survey, and I had to fill out a 10-page questionnaire for the 5-question survey. It was spectacular.
That's probably the best word that can be used for that. Yeah, it's a tad excessive, isn't it?
I don't know what gave that away, but
paperwork, and it's just no fun. And I never really fit in. I wanted the kids to have fun and be creative and explore learning in a million different ways. But unfortunately, unless they had 8 pages filled in every textbook and it was marked within an inch of its life, so that you can no longer see what the child has written underneath it, then your place doesn't, your face doesn't fit, and your place isn't in a school, unfortunately. So yeah, I had to come away from that, but I did work for a professional football club for a number of years. And I started doing education out in the community, and because my specialism was English, I was going out and doing like English booster classes for different groups within the community at school, and with older people, and with looked after children. That was a really nice one. I started up a reading project with them, and I even got to take some of the academy players through their qualifications as well, or try and get them through their qualifications. I turned up. That was about as best as I could hope for some days. But yeah, so that English was, I guess, the thing I was best at. But I just had this vision that I would probably end up getting into a really big argument if I was in a secondary school. I'd probably end up arguing with a teenager and not hearing the end of it. So I felt that primary was probably a little bit better for me. I'd have more of a sense of control. I need that in my life, Sasha. You see, I need the control.
Okay, let's start with the obvious. So you are one of many things, but also a copywriter. Now, lots of people hear the word copywriting, and copywriting is important for any business, including indie authors. But what the fuck is copywriting, and why should any of us care about being good at it?
Oh, great question. So I always make the distinction that the way everyone says they can write, and people will say, oh, I won't hire a copywriter because I can just write it myself, or my sister's boyfriend's neighbour's dog walker can do it for me. They've said they'll do it for a tenner, so they're going to write my website copy for me. There's a lot of truth in that. Anyone can write, but copywriting is writing that sells. It converts. It gets people to sign up to your product or offer. It gets people to keep following you. It gets people to buy your shit, basically. So yeah, copywriting is all about having writing that not just fills space the way content would, and that does certainly still have its purpose, but copy actually gets a conversion. It gets people to take notice, to start following, and ultimately to pay you money to give them a product or give them a service. So if you want your writing to actually be doing something, copywriting is what you absolutely need. So yeah, I always say that copy is killer and content is just filler. At which point a load of content marketers will probably have a go at me for that, but it's just the way I personally view it. Copy is killer.
Yeah, I love it. So I think a lot of writers think the only time they need to worry about copy is like when they're writing their book blurb that's on the sales page on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever. And of course that is really important, but actually there are a stack of places that we need to think about copy, and those include like our website if we're selling direct on our own website, advertising, if you're creating like Facebook ads or you're creating Amazon ads, like there are a stack of other places. And if you sell services as well, many authors now have like side businesses as well, and you're going to need copy for all of those things as well. So like, what are your your top 3 or top 2 tips for creating better copy?
I think you've always got to give people something of yourself in your copy. So, for example, if you are hoping to promote your book, then yes, you've got that blurb there, as you mentioned, that is going to sell your book for you. You put some great copy into that. It's going to give people a window into what the book is about, what they can expect, a hint at the characterization and the narrative, and that's amazing. But for everything else, you need to put yourself into it, because people aren't necessarily going to find out about the book. They're going to find out about you first, and then we want to give them enough to think, I like this person, I like what they've got to say, I like what they're putting out on social, I like what's on the an interview that they did in a recent magazine or something like that, or a piece they've written for a publication. And that you want to give people enough of yourself so they think, I like you, I want to find out more. So with a lot of the books that I tend to buy, I will usually find the book after I've found the author, and I'll listen to someone at an event, or I'll see that they've written something somewhere and I'll think I really like them. I'll see that they're an author. I'll go and have a look at what books they've got for sale, books that they've published, and I'll likely buy one because I've invested in that person. But I can only do that if I'm seeing some good copywriting. So I think unless it is your blurb or someone has asked you to do a particular sales pitch, think about selling yourself through your copy rather than your book. If that makes sense, Sasha, kind of, tell people who you are, what it is about you. So I do writing for other people. So I get involved in other people's books. I edit them, and sometimes I've ghostwritten for them, and that's great. But when people come to me for copywriting, they don't find me because they want a copywriter. They found me because I've been talking about random bollocks on LinkedIn, and they'll think, oh, I like her. I could have fun with her. I could work with her. I like her work ethic. I like her values. I like the way her mind works. I like how she goes off on tangents. I like how she just doesn't really care about, if people like her posts or engage massively with them. And that's how people come to me, and they'll say, I need a copywriter. I want it to be you.
What was
that decision.
What was the one that Janet mentioned because she mentioned that you'd written something hilarious because she described you as the sweary something one.
The sweary northern one.
Yeah, that was it. What was the...
I don't even know what it was that I'd written, but I sure as shit had not written a post that said, oh, I hope someone who's got a fantastic podcast and who has a big event on, who needs speakers, wants to hire me as a speaker because I'm articulate, I'm funny, I can, give some great anecdotes. She'd not looked at something like that and gone, oh, I do have an event coming up and I do need someone who's articulate with great anecdotes. She'd not picked me to speak at her event or speak on her podcast for that. She'd picked me because I've been talking random shite about, I don't know, what did it's actually a very strange question, Sasha, because you asked me what I've written on posts and I honestly don't know, and that is the level of importance that it represents in my life. I just write whatever's in my head. I give people whatever is in my head. I don't overthink it, and that's really what I think people should be doing when they're looking to promote themselves. Just be yourself.
Yeah, and I think I actually, and that leads on to another question, which I'm going to ask before I ask the other one I was going to ask. But I think this is a really key point, because lots of authors get very afraid of sharing any elements of themselves, as if, we get very worried about like giving too much of ourselves, being too open. Authors are a lot of the time are quite introverted. They're quite private people. Yeah. They don't necessarily want to share, they definitely don't want their kids online or whatever. Yeah. And all of those things are fine. But, there are many different ways that you can share. Like, one of the ones that always sticks in my head that Janet mentioned was she was in a hairdresser's and there was a dog in there. And so she put up a question on, pets or dogs in hairdressers, like yay or nay. And she had like hundreds and hundreds of comments because people had such significant opinions about it. And I wish I could remember the one that she said, because I remember laughing about whatever it was that you had posted. But this is the thing, you can post pieces of your life. That was a piece of her life, but it wasn't necessarily about her business, and it wasn't necessarily about her personal or private life. So you can still share valuable pieces of yourself without you exposing too much of your family or privacy.
Oh, of course, yeah. Because you don't have to be going on there telling people your inside leg measurement and what you had for tea. And although people do that, and I wonder how it gets as much engagement as it does. But then I think that's fine if other posts are getting engagement. It doesn't necessarily mean people are buying from them. And I always want people to know that when they're writing copy, they'll say, oh, I don't get any engagement, or I only got 10 likes or something. Well, you can get 1,000 likes, but if none of those people have put their hand in their pocket and bought something from you, that doesn't really matter, does it? It's not the bigger picture. But the key word you said there was like valuable. And it is about, giving something that is valuable in some way. So as Janet's done with, dogs in hairdressers, yay or nay, ask people questions, put your thoughts out there. It got me wondering about this. What do we think? What are people's thoughts about? So when we're copywriting, it's not just me. It is about getting your audience involved, getting them to take an interest, getting them to look your way, because that's exactly what marketing is. Copywriting is a big part of marketing. All book authors need to be marketing themselves, and it's all about getting people to look your way.
Absolutely. So writers are trained to create voice for their characters, and voice is, like, I always refer to it as like the holy grail. It's some mythical thing. Writers really struggle with grasping the concept of like author voice versus character voice. And so many of them find it very difficult. Like, you know, once you've created your character voice, many authors find it then difficult to have voice in their marketing and their copy. Now, I often get told that I write exactly how I speak because it's sweary and sarcastic. Like, this is my nonfiction anyway. You know, everybody says they can hear my voice as they're reading my work. And so because I write so closely to how I speak, it's easy for me to put that into the marketing as well. But that's not necessarily the case for everybody. And I know I certainly struggle with it when it comes to my fiction, because it's a different kind of voice. It's definitely less sweary because I write for kids. Anyway, so I have read some of your blogs, and your voice is super sassy, sarcastic, sweary, and hilarious. Like, it's so witty. So do you have any advice for listeners on how they can find, create, or utilize their existing voice in their marketing copy?
I think it always comes down to confidence, and that will only ever grow the more you do something. So I think this is a case of getting yourself a starting point and start putting stuff out there and see what happens, really. The big thing I would say is not to try and emulate someone else. So I'd done a one-to-one with someone, and they said, oh, I really admire your voice in what you do and how you come across. And then she said, I just want to start swearing in my posts and saying what I think. And I said to her, well, do you swear in real life? In real life, because it's online, it's not real. And she said, no, but I know it does work really well for you. And I was like, yeah, it works really well for me, because if someone was to meet me in real life, they would hear me swear. And so that's exactly what I do online. I don't filter myself. Well, actually, that's a complete lie. I do. When people say, oh, you say what you think, I think you really don't know the alphabet. There's a lot of it I cut out for the sake of not being banned from LinkedIn. But yeah, to an extent, I do say what I think, to an extent. But yeah, if you're trying to emulate someone else, it's never going to work, because it is just not sustainable. And as well as not being sustainable, and you having to think, oh, how can I write this? People will see through it. I can see when people have tried to be provocative in the marketing and it's not them, and I cringe and I think, oh God, no, that's not you. Why are you doing this? It sounds wrong. So I always advise people to, you'd said it yourself, to write how you speak. If you were down the pub with your mates back in the days when pubs were a thing, I don't know if I'll ever get to go in one now that I'm in tier 3 up here. I think pubs are a distant dream for us. But yeah, if you were in the pub with your mates talking about things, that's how I believe you should come across in your copy. Because when you're an author, you are giving something of yourself. You don't have to be corporate. You need to have a fan base. I mean, but just before you hit record, we talked about that word fan, didn't we? To have a fan. Well, when you're an author, you do have fans. You have people who follow you, and they will follow you because they lap up everything that you do. So they'll want to hear from you, and they'll want to know what you're really like. So I think sometimes authors underestimate just how much their fans want to hear from them. However that comes across. So it's about having that confidence to just think, I'm going to start this, I'm going to put myself out there. You'll find over time your voice will develop naturally anyway. And I know that for a fact, because writing is my career and it's something I do all the time. But a little bit earlier this year, I thought, I'm going to get 25 of my best ever blogs and I'm going to package them together and sell them as a little collection. Just a little bit of a money maker, a little bit of a way of curating some of my best work. And I very arrogantly thought, oh my God, this is going to be so hard to narrow it down to 25. You know, when all of my blogs are amazing, how am I possibly going to narrow this down to 25? I'd written like 200 by this point. And it became a case of not finding the 25 best, but throwing out the 175 shittest blogs, because I read through some of them and I thought, how on earth have I got this on my website? How on earth have I put my name to this? And back at the time when I'd originally written it, it was fine. It ticked all the boxes I wanted it to tick. It was fine. But my voice now it's become more elaborate. I've probably become a lot sharper, a lot more fierce, a lot more bold, a lot less caring about what people think, because I'm more established in my career and I feel more confident. So therefore, I look back on these old pieces and think, oh my God, they were so safe. They were so tame. They didn't really say anything of value, in my opinion. But at least I started there, and I wouldn't be where I am now had I not put pen to paper in those early days. So it's about just getting started and seeing where it takes you and develop that voice and that confidence over time. But yeah, there's no time like the present. Get doing it. And as I said, your fans want to hear from you. They want to know what you're about. And let's be honest, some people could say anything and people will still buy their stuff. So you can't really get it wrong. You really can't.
I definitely have go-to authors, or I just buy whatever they say. I'll just have it because I know
Exactly.
I'm going to like it.
Exactly. It's like, you know, we make this kind of like moral judgment of like, oh my God, they've said something dreadful on Twitter, I'm going to boycott what they do. And you think, well, no, I actually like their books, or I like the films they're in, and it's enjoyment. So yeah, I'm just going to go with it. So you can't, believe me, if anyone can get banned from Twitter or wherever, it should be me. And I've yet, touch wood, to be kicked off. So just give it a go.
Another aspect that writers find really hard to get their heads around is branding. So how can writers ensure their branding is consistent with their their marketing copy voice?
Well, your word there that you used, consistency, I think that needs to be applied across everything. So when people are doing their marketing, and again, a load of marketing people will probably shoot me for this, but again, it is just an opinion and others are available. People say, oh, I'm going to do something to promote my work on LinkedIn, but I'd also want to promote it on Facebook. So I need to adjust my language or, you know, change my tone. And I think that's a ridiculous idea. I think pick where your audience is and zone in on them. So anything that I write on LinkedIn, I will put the exact same thing on Facebook and the exact same thing on Twitter and see what sticks with it. I'm not going to change up my language because I think that dilutes my brand, because I'm being inconsistent. I want people to look at my stuff wherever they see it or wherever they hear it. So this, you know, we talk about the written word, you know, being put down somewhere, but it also goes for talks, you know, author talks, library visits, book tours, things like that. The language you're using, you're still putting a lot of thought into it, and you've no doubt written yourself some notes before you go out there. So it all comes down to copywriting, whether it's written or whether you are speaking and you are presenting. But I would keep it the same wherever you are. If you're trying to be all things to all people and address different crowds in different areas, you've just got no consistency whatsoever. So it's about showing up and people knowing who you are and exactly what to expect, really. So yeah, don't think about trying to please anyone else, because it is totally impossible. It's always difficult with branding, I know. So I hope that answers the question, Sasha. It is just about consistency and being the same wherever you are. Don't be all things to all people. It's not possible.
Yeah, I think that all things to all people is something that many of us do early on in our careers. Like, I know I kind of made that mistake with my first series because I tried to put too much in because I just wanted to do all of the things in my book. And I'm like, actually, the best books are those that are hyper niche and focus on like delivering on one trope rather than, you know, trying to deliver on many. So speaking of errors, what mistakes do you see people making in their copywriting?
Oh, definitely not knowing when to quit. Less is always more. And it's why any decent copywriter will never charge you by the word. And that's, I mentor a lot of younger and newer copywriters, and when we talk about pricing and stuff like that, they'll say about charging by the word. And I think, well, no, because you could waffle on in a 500-word blog and it'll take you 5 minutes. But if you've got to get a key message across and you've only got 5 words to do it in, and you want to get it absolutely right, then it could take you days, it could take you forever. And those 5 words are going to be the most important thing in someone's brand, no doubt. So yeah, I always think less is more. And I think quit while you're ahead. So I get a lot of clients who will say, oh, I want to write sales copy for my latest project, book, tour that I'm going on, product I'm selling, service that I'm plugging. So I want about 2,000 words. And I'm like, you don't, because no one's going to read that. Essentially, if they've not made up their mind after the first paragraph that they definitely want it, they're not going to want it. I think you just need to really hit all the messages quickly and hit them hard. So likewise, when I edit people's sales pages for them, I'll say, right, well, you're not going to like this, but I am going to take all of your pages of rambling and I'm going to turn it into 1 paragraph, because we need to make people think, I want to buy this, I want to invest in this. And I don't want any authors listening to this thinking about just purely about instant book sales, because it's not about that. When I say buy, yes, it might be about buying a physical product that you're selling and buying your book, but it might be buying into you and thinking, oh, I'm going to sign up for your email list, or I'm going to look out for when you're going to do a tour because I wouldn't mind listening to you, or I'm going to listen out for when you're being asked to speak at a conference or an event because I'd really like to follow you. So it's about buying into you as a person, but less is definitely more. If you're going to ramble on with pages and pages and pages, including things like, and another bonus of what you can get, and that's not everything, and what's more, I can give you this and this, you're losing people. No one's got the time or patience to read that stuff. So hit your messages hard and just remember, less is more.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Okay. So as I said, I have read some of your blogs, which I find hilarious, even when you're talking about something serious. So I think, but this is the thing, I think there is a danger with humor. If you're not naturally funny and you try to be, sometimes the humor can fall flat. And obviously for people who are naturally funny, it's very easy for them. But for people who would like to use humor in their work, do you have any advice for them?
Again, I'd say about the not trying to be all things to all people. And if I can give you a couple of examples, I sent out an email from my mailing list yesterday. Okay. And for me, people are only going to read an email you send them if it's part of a group thing, if you can do something to hook them in. Okay, so if I'm sending an email just to one person, of course they're going to open it because they'll know it's for them specifically. But if it's part of a mailing list, if they're like me, they'll think, oh, I might read that in a few days, or I might get round to that. But we all end up on these subscriber lists, don't we? And we end up not opening these emails. I want people to open my emails. So I'm quite, I'm going to say humorous. I don't know if that's how everyone sees it. I try to use a bit of humor. However, I used the phrase yesterday, it's been a month since I bothered your box. Okay. So obviously I meant, since I've sent you an email into your inbox. But I thought I'm just going to use it. It's a little bit kind of carry on humor for any of your UK fans who are familiar with that terrible film franchise. It's very all matron, that kind of thing. But I said, it's been a month since I've bothered your box. And the open rate on it was absolutely brilliant. I got loads of people replying to it saying, oh my God, that opening line, you're hilarious. Or, oh, that was risque, but I loved it. But then I did get someone who knew what I was like, knew what my humor was like, and yet wanted to tell me that they were really upset by it. And actually, they'd said that kind of language was a trigger for women who have been abused. Now, there was part of me that was horrified because I thought, oh my God, I would never want to offend anyone like that. And I would certainly never want to upset anyone who has been through something like that in their life. That's bloody awful. That's horrific. So I felt ashamed of what I'd written. But then I thought, hang on, you're one person out of all the people who've tagged me on social media or who have replied to this mailing list who said, oh my God, that was fucking hilarious. I loved it. It was just what I needed on a Monday afternoon. I love how you're not afraid to just, try and be funny. I love that, try and be funny. So, sorry, bit of a COVID cough going on. So it was starting then to annoy me that it was just one person. And then I got really annoyed because I thought, how dare you be offended on behalf of someone else? It's like if she would have come to me and said, I was really upset, I was triggered, it really got to me, it brought out something in me that I really didn't like, I think I'd have been more sympathetic about it. But it was the fact that she was like, oh, there might be someone out there who suffered abuse and you might trigger them with this word. I thought, please don't be offended on behalf of someone else. It's not very becoming. Can't stand it. I really can't stand it at all. But that just goes to show that I thought it was funny. The majority of the people who read it thought it was funny, but someone else who had followed me for a while didn't find it funny. So the thing with humour, it's not, as we've already said, it's not going to be all things to all people. It's not always going to come across in the way you intended. And if someone wants to be offended, they will find it no matter what you write anyway. And sadly, humour is a massive target for that because people see it as an opinion. They see it as you making fun of something. And so it is, but different humour appeals to different people, doesn't it? So if you say to people, who's your favourite comedian? Someone might say someone and you think, my God, they are not funny at all. Yeah. I don't get it. It's so subjective. So rather than overthink it, I always think if it makes you laugh, go with it. Because at the very least, you've given yourself a giggle and you've had some fun with your writing, and it should be fun. And at the most, you'll have someone out there who goes, oh my God, that is exactly my kind of humour. I love it. That really, really speaks to me. And if it alienates people in the process, that's fine. Because yes, we're all about drawing in a fan base and people who love us, but there's no harm in repelling the people who just don't want to know, because we don't want to waste our time with those people anyway. They can go to someone else and we can just concentrate on those who genuinely want to believe in us and buy from us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. My wife likes Jimmy Carr and I think he's an absolute cock. So, you know, I just don't get him. I don't find him funny. I think his laugh is annoying. But then, you know, like somebody really silly, like back in the day, Lee Evans used to make me like, you know, I could not breathe. Laughing. I had tears streaming down my face because he was just so silly. Like silly. Yeah. I love silly humor. I love a dad joke because I don't understand other jokes. This is the reason why I actually like dad jokes, is because I actually don't get normal jokes. But
they're quite
jokes,
simple.
Yeah, exactly. They're silly and funny, which is what the sillier they are, the funnier it is. But I completely agree. Like, and I can't agree more with the repelling thing. Like, I am super sweary even in my books, and I'm super sarcastic, and I just jokes come out when I write. So, you know, I have had people say things like, this would have been a really good book if it weren't for the swearing.
Oh, God's sake.
You know, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, obviously I am not there. What's the word? Like,
yeah, the cup of tea with
exactly.
it. The cup of tea. But I love that kind of marketing, because I think certainly for people when they're early on in their career or their writing, that kind of thing will kill you. And, you know, you'll be there going, oh my God, they've left this review and it said, you know, it would have been great except for, and then they use patronizing language, like the author really let themselves down with the choice of language. And it's so fucking patronizing. It really is. And I can't stand it. But I use it to my advantage now. I take screen grabs of stuff like that and I put it on as a post on social media, and I'll go,
amazing.
You know, but discuss. And it's just great. It's kind of that perpetual cycle of social media content. The more someone has a go at me, I will use their point and I will make them famous. I really will, because I'll share it.
You've got to have a vagina of iron, though, to do that, because like it takes such strength to to like expose, I don't know, like yeah, I don't know, I would absolutely love to do that, because I tell you, I have had some absolutely killer reviews. I remember one particular one, the weird thing was it was 3 stars, and it should have been 1 from the style and content of the review, but also they'd read the book more than once, which is what really made me laugh. But they used a GIF to describe how annoying my voice was. I was like, wow. And it was Janice, like, you know, from Friends, the woman that's like, yeah. And they're like, they can just imagine that I am that annoying. And I was like, wow, you really hated like my book. And then I was just like, oh, well, what else can I say that's like, you know, how else can I be more me? Because then I'll just repel the people that don't like my voice. But yeah, people are vicious.
People are vicious, but these people who go out of their way to read your book twice before deciding that they're ultimately disgusted by it, or, you know, morally offended, or just, you know, really disappointed, whatever they want to choose, they're still doing marketing for us. Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to say all publicity is good publicity. I'm not going to be one of those people. However, when you are a creative and when you are an author or when you're a writer, if people go out of their way to say things, no matter how different, you know, just kind of defamatory they are, or whatever, use it. Yes, you do have to have a certain degree of bollocks to just go, well, I'm going to name and shame you with this, or I'm going to screenshot what you've done, blank out the name if that makes you feel a bit better. But they started it, and I know that sounds a bit childish, but you started it, so I'm going to carry it on. But it is true. If they've seen fit to put their opinion out there, they have to respect some kind of, they have to expect some kind of comeback to it. And I just think, well, it's good marketing, because I want people to talk about it. The worst thing you can be as an author, and you know this, is when people don't say anything. People put your book down and go, right.
I've definitely,
you know, we want the people who've got, you know, they've had a response to it, because that is amazing. And that will drive intrigue, because then other people will pick up your stuff and go, I want to see what all the fuss is about. Yeah. I bought stuff based on that. I want to know what it's all about. I've had people on, I know I keep talking about LinkedIn, but that's where I do my marketing. So Facebook dies on its arse for me. There's no one there for me. Twitter, I'm not cool enough to really be there. So I don't really understand why I still have an account. But LinkedIn works for me. And I think I said this, didn't I, when I did the talk for Janet? I've had people who have hated, and I don't mean they've had a different viewpoint to mine. I mean, they've really gone at me, you know, and said, you know, my behavior is dreadful and my tone is disrespectful. And they've said that. And then I've got an inbox later on from someone else who's connected to them, but not to me. But they've seen the review of my work, and they've gone, well, I was drawn to you because I saw this person I know has commented, I've had a look at your stuff and I really like it, and actually I'd like to book you to be my copywriter. So I love the fact that so many of my haters have inadvertently paid for a lot of my holidays in the sunshine.
Oh my God, karma is amazing.
Isn't it? It works. It really was. It's great publicity, because, yeah, if people are talking about your book, you've written a fucking good book. That's all I can say. It doesn't matter what they say about it. The fact that they felt compelled to say something means you've written a great book. Be proud of it.
Absolutely. All right. This is always my favorite question. This is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell listeners about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Okay. I think, as I mentioned before, I didn't, you know, spring from the womb all ranty and sarcastic and dark and fearless with what I say. I was so, even up until a few years ago, I was so timid and quiet and didn't say anything that would possibly upset anyone. And then over the years, you know, my cynical nature has just come to the front of what I'm doing, and it's really all coming out in this kind of like bilious text that I start putting out in my marketing and in my blogs and in the stuff I write for myself. And And you've mentioned sarcasm a few times. I love sarcasm. I think it's wonderful. It will always draw me in. I'll always want to listen to it, and I'll always want to be that way in what I'm doing, even if it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine, as we've said. But I wrote a blog. It was just over a year ago, and I remember I wrote it the night before I went on holiday. And plan was, I'm going to write it and upload it on LinkedIn and on my website, and then I'm not going to look at my phone for a week. And I came back, and it had so much engagement. So the arrogant part of me thought, brilliant, I've got all this engagement. Wow, that's wonderful. But it was short-lived, because I was getting a lot of hatred on this blog. And it's because I'd written it sarcastically. And oh my God, it was an eye-opener to me at how many people don't get sarcasm. So I'd written this piece about freelancers. I am a freelancer. It says that very clearly on all of the stuff I do on my website, on my profiles. I make it clear I am a freelancer. I'm just me. I'm out there. I'm on my own, doing my own thing. So obviously I've got massive respect for freelancers. But I wrote a piece saying, here's why you can forget all about your freelancer. And I'd said, free really does mean free. So don't be afraid to haggle down the price once they put a cost to you. Free also relates to their time. So if you've got a project doing, you can expect them to jump to it. They can, they've got all the time in the world. So if you've got something that needs sorting at 10 p.m. at night, don't worry if you're interrupting their family time. Get straight onto them. Their time is free. It's for you. Do it. Pick up that phone. I'd written other things like, you can pay them last. Don't worry. It's much more important that you pay your big, well-established clients. Freelancers do this for a bit of a laugh anyway. Let's face it, it's probably a sideline. They don't rely on the money. Don't worry about it. And I've done this big list of why basically freelancers are disposable. Exactly. Yeah. And there were a few people who commented saying, oh my God, I got to like point number 4 before I actually thought, shit, Joe, you're committing career suicide. But then I realized, oh my God, you are obviously taking the piss. Because as it got further down the road, it was more and more ludicrous. It really was. All the stuff I was saying about freelancers, absolutely ludicrous. And a lot of people got it. This point again about humor. Not everyone will find it funny. Not everyone can find it funny. But I had so much hatred on this blog. And sadly, the people who were giving me the most grief were freelance copywriters.
No.
And yeah, I was absolutely horrified, because I kind of expected that Jean from, down the road was, outraged by it or whatever, or, the usual suspects, the people who are always fucking horrified at whatever you write because it doesn't fit within their moral code, or, this isn't Facebook or whatever. And they're always going to be outraged, whatever you do and however you do it. But it wasn't from those people. And it was from freelancers, and it was from copywriters, and people saying I was a disgrace to the freelancing world. I was a disgrace to writers everywhere who were trying so hard to show people how important writing was, and how to all of this. I was getting these words: disgusted, disgraceful, all this horrible stuff. I should be ashamed of myself. A couple of people who'd said they'd followed me for a long time and would no longer be supporting any of the work that I'd done. I had one client who didn't get it, who saw the post and said, I won't be working with you again in future. I thought as freelancers we supported each other. All of this. I couldn't fucking believe it, Sasha. I really couldn't believe it, because it wasn't even slightly sarcastic. It was immensely so. Immensely. I'll have to send you the link just so you can read it yourself. And it just, but whilst that infuriated me, I'm sorry my voice is going, by the way. I do think I've got COVID coming on. I really do. It's my time. As horrified as I was by all of it, I thought, fuck you. This is how I'm going to do all my writing from now on. And so from that point, I have been even more sarcastic than ever. And the more people it pisses off, the better, because the more traffic it drives my way, and the more stuff I sell as a result of it. So yeah, that is my inner rebel. That was my turning point where I thought, this is what I'm going to do now.
That's exactly how I reacted to the dickwad who put the Janice gif on my review as well. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm just going to be, I'm going to 10x this now. Like, if you don't like it, awesome. I'm going to 10x it.
Yeah. Capitalize, definitely.
Exactly. All right. Where can listeners find out more about you, your services, any books, social media, whatever, all the works?
Well, I've just had my website redone, so I'd love it if people went there because I'm really, really proud of it. It used to say anything and everything on it. It was like, oh, this is why copywriter is fantastic for your business. This is why you need a copywriter. This is the benefits of a copywriter, blah, blah, blah. And what's more than that? And all that stuff that I'd said before that doesn't work. Now I've got this website where I practice what I preach. It's so streamlined. It basically says, this is what I do. This is how much it's going to cost you. If you want to talk, brilliant. And that's it. So you can find that at www.agoodwriteup.com. And you'll see me on there. If you are expecting to be told what a copywriter is, you won't find it on there, because usually when people go to my website, it's because they know they want a copywriter. Then now they're just at the stage of thinking, which one do I want? So that's how I market myself on my website. So that's all there. I am on LinkedIn. You can find me. I should have written this down. So it's Jo Watson. I've then got pretentiously twattish letters after my name. There's 8 of them. I can never genuinely remember what they are. There's a few M's, a few C's, and a few I's in there. So if you see a Jo Watson and then there's brackets and then there's about 8 letters, that's me. And that's because I'm a chartered manager. And I'm really fucking proud of how hard I work for that. And those letters are sticking with me to the day I die. And my husband actually said to me, he said, do you just pay your membership every year so you can keep those letters? And I was like, yeah.
Amazing.
Pretty much. I do a little bit of management in my work. I do go and work with some clients and do some management with them, but it's not my main selling point. But yeah, for as long as I can have those letters, I'm keeping them. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. Don't bother with Facebook or Twitter. I'm really shit on there. My humor does not go down well, and people don't like the swearing.
I will make sure both of those are in the show notes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Sasha. I've loved this. I'm just so sorry, like, if I've been coughing or getting a husky. I hope it comes across as sexy, but I doubt it does. It probably just sounds like I'm dying.
It's totally sexy. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to everybody listening. And of course, a big thank you to all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Jo Watson, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Jordan Rosenfeld. It is a corker of an episode. We are looking at what a scene is, how to make a scene, mistakes you make with scenes, and we also dive a little bit into point of view, and you even get to hear a few cheeky secrets about The Scent of Death, the book that I'm working on in the background, even though I shouldn't be, because I should be working on all the other books I'm supposed to be doing. Anyway, join us next week for that. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.